Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. 320's just around the corner and it brings with it a new ship in the form of the MISC Hull C. This transforming behemoth is set to take the crown of largest hauler in Stanton with its 4,608 SCU of cargo capacity, dwarfing the 696 found on the Crusader Hercules C2. But does that mean that it's a one-way ticket to becoming a space trucking tycoon? If you're keen to find out my initial thoughts on this new ship, then just grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, and then let's get into it. So as you may know by now, I don't really believe in keeping you hanging, so if you're just here for the too long didn't watch version of this video, then my 7-word review of the Hull C is as follows. Very cool, heaps of potential, unrefined gameplay. As ever with Star Citizen, the Hull C will be available in 320 to backers who have ponied up the real world hard currency for one. Then sometime in the next 6 months or so, it will make its way into the in-game ship shops for a UEC. And based on what I've seen so far, I would feel under zero pressure to run out and buy one just to get my hands on it. Because I think it's going to need a patch or two of refinement to get it to a place where it delivers on some of its promise. But you are definitely going to want to make friends with someone who has, because damn, this thing does look and feel every part the ultimate space hauler. There's a certain design language, thank you for teaching me new words, morphologists, that pervades through the MISC lineup. And I feel that CIG have really got the right balance of industrial vibes, but people actually having to live and work on these things, all the way up from the Prospector up to the new Hull C. We got a nice glimpse of the cargo spindle with the much smaller Hull A, but seeing it work on the giant Hull C is really a thing of industrial beauty. And when you hit Quantum with a full load, you really do feel like you're in the next level of cargo haulers. Just give me a trucker hat and a flannel shirt. And with the introduction of the Hull C, we also see this vast potential unlock. CIG have introduced a whole bunch of commodities at the low orbital space stations like Everest Harbour and Bikini Point, to give the Hull C some viable trade routes, since it's the first ship to enter the game that can't enter Atmo. I'll be reviewing these commodities more closely when we're a bit further along in the PTU, or approaching a live version, since in every version I've played so far, Bikini Point at Area 18 has been experiencing problems either with buying and loading cargo, or with getting it actually onto the ship. I think it's only really worth coming out with some form of guide when we can see the whole potential loop. I also do like the fact that we now have cargo timers associated with loading such a massive ship. Essentially, you buy the cargo from the kiosk at the station's admin, and it's sent to the cargo deck for collection. You then undock in the Hull C and fly to the blue box next to the cargo deck, where you have to remain stationary for about 5 minutes to take on a full load. This also presents some problems which we'll discuss in a little bit, but I did just want to highlight that the inclusion of loading and unloading mechanics, even very basic ones like this, are generally a good thing in principle. And finally, for a quick rundown of the Hull C's potential, I think we have to include that this ship has driven work on the 32 SCU cargo containers that were sorely missing from Star Citizen. I know that singing the praises of a PTU's performance basically unleashes a curse on the player base, so I won't take it that far, but even my smooth brain can understand that less objects equals better performance. These bigger cargo boxes also unlock the potential for more variety and reward from things like salvage missions. However, I do think it's important, because happiness equals expectations minus reality, to call attention to the unrefined nature of the mechanics in play here, particularly since they make me question how fun it's actually going to be to roll around in a Hull C once 320 hits. First and foremost is the risk involved. As a Hull C operator, you are incredibly vulnerable when loading. You're in the open and completely stationary, so anyone rocking around with a few size 9 torpedoes, or a desire to become a size 11 one themselves, is free to take a pot shot at you. This is particularly problematic when CIG really haven't been clear what constitutes pad ramming, when they outlined griefing in SC. Even though destroying a Hull C when it's loading isn't going to necessarily net you a piratable outcome, you'll be in armistice zone so tractor beams won't work for recovering cargo. There are some people who just want to watch the world burn, for whom costing you the load is enough reward in itself. And particularly if they get a little bit of salt in global chat, that is. There isn't really any logic in making a ship like this take on cargo completely in the open like this. It would make a lot more sense if you entered some form of shielded tunnel or dock while the timer ticked. And right next to this is the fact that any other ship entering the box while you're loading or unloading will stall the process. This happened to me when I was getting scanned by security. I could very easily see some low effort pirate using a small ship to zip in and out of the box, interrupting the transfer, then demanding a ransom just to go away. And in reality, the Hull C crew have very little that they could do about it. I also think a trick was missed not involving the smaller haulers of Stanton in the Hull C's loop. Steps were taken to implement commodities at the low orbitals, but I think we could have had the first instances of commodities that are available to buy and sell at the same location. Logically, the commodities are being transported to the low orbital for onward conveyance to the TDD down on the planet, so why not let the Hull C sell at a certain price, a bit below what's on offer at the TDD, while a short-haul cargo captain can pick up for a smidge over that and complete the trip. And finally on my list of constructive criticisms, I think we have to look at the relatively high tedium caused by having to physically visit the Galleria deck to buy and sell cargo, before flying the ship to the cargo deck for transfer. If you're transporting a full load for sale before buying another to take onwards, then your loop is going to involve docking to head to the Galleria to sell, heading back to the hull and undocking to take it to the cargo deck for transfer, then docking again, doing another trip to the Galleria to buy, then back to the ship, back to the cargo deck to unload. I'm a big believer that the focus should be fun, and while I've generally liked getting out of my ship at far-flung outposts to head into a building and stock up, particularly when I've been doing smuggling and heading to places which are a little bit shadier, when we reach this scale, it really begs the question why, in the year 2953, I cannot agree a set of transactions with a space station from my pilot's seat. We've got mobi-glasses that can wire credits, hold video calls, check our stats. Why can these not communicate about cargo at a densely populated location? Incorporating this would just be a huge quality of life improvement for traders, and I sincerely hope it's something that CIG are considering. So I hope this was an interesting video. I really don't intend to come across as salty or negative, because I'm really not. I recognise that with Star Citizen, we'll often get new ships and new systems in an MVP state, and I just think it's important that we therefore provide feedback around what's fun and what's not. Of course, CIG have to consider game balance, and maybe with the Hull C some of the limitations are to encourage that. You could for instance get around my last point to some degree by flying with a crew. The owner could get dropped off by their friend, and while they handle the transactions in the space station, their mate could be flying the ship back and forth into the cargo deck. Or alternatively, you could fly the ship at a 50% load, allowing you to sell your load and take on another half load in one transaction at the Galleria, cutting out the need to make 2 trips back and forth. Still, I just feel that some of these things maybe need a polish pass or two to make the gameplay enjoyable and engaging. Hence I'll probably be holding on to my pennies and waiting for the ship to come into the game shops after a patch or 2. If you did enjoy the vid, consider dropping a like and hitting subscribe for more content as we go into 320. Like most of the community, I'm intending to take a small diversion and enjoy some Starfield as well. I haven't quite decided whether to put that content up on this channel or start a new one to keep things clean. If you've got an opinion on that or anything else, feel free to drop it down in the comments. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.